Professor Charles Xavier stood in the heart of the Cerebro room, the hum of the machine filling the air as he gently adjusted the controls. His eyes were closed, but his mind was wide open, scanning the world for signs of mutants in need. The weight of his responsibility pressed heavily on him, but it was a burden he bore willingly. He had made it his life's mission to protect his people, the mutants, the ones who were so often misunderstood, feared, or hated. The world outside the mansion was a place of turmoil. Tensions were rising between mutants and humans, and Xavier knew that the fragile peace he had worked so hard to maintain was on the verge of crumbling. He had seen it before, during the darkest days of the X-Men, but this time it felt different. The hatred was sharper, the fear more palpable. Professor Xavier, came the voice of Storm, her tone serious yet calm, as always. She stepped into the room, her eyes scanning the screens that displayed the data from Cerebro. "Are you certain about this?" Xavier nodded slowly, his expression soft but resolute. "The world may never understand us, Ororo, but we cannot stand by while our brothers and sisters are hunted down." Storm's piercing gaze met his. She had known Charles Xavier for years, and she knew the depth of his convictions. "You've always been the one to fight for peaceful coexistence. But this feels like something different. The world isn't just afraid anymore. They're angry." "I know," Xavier replied, his voice filled with sorrow. "The fear has turned into something more dangerous. It's becoming a storm we can't weather with words alone. But I believe still that there is hope, if we act before it's too late." Just then, the door to the Cerebro room opened and Cyclops entered, his visor glowing faintly. His expression was grim, and his jaw was set in determination. "Professor, we've got a situation. A group of mutants in a nearby city are being targeted. It's not just any group, these are kids, some of them barely out of their teens." Xavier's heart sank. The younger generation, the ones he had fought so hard to protect, were now the ones at risk. "We leave immediately," he said, his voice firm. Within moments, the X-Men were assembling, preparing for a mission that would take them deep into the heart of a world that had grown increasingly hostile to them. But as they gathered around, Charles Xavier paused for a moment to look at each of them. His students, his friends, his family. Storm, Cyclops, Wolverine, Beast, Jean. Each one of them had sacrificed so much for the cause. They were all that stood between a world teetering on the edge of chaos and the dream of peaceful coexistence. And it was his dream that they carried, one that had been with him since the beginning. "Remember," Xavier said softly, his voice carrying a weight of unspoken history. "We are not just fighting for survival. We are fighting for a future where we can live in harmony with those who fear us. Never forget that, no matter the obstacles we face." With that, the X-Men teleported out, their mission clear, but the uncertainty of the world still looming large. Xavier remained behind, staring at the swirling patterns on the Cerebro screens, his mind once again reaching out across the globe to find those in need. But for a brief moment, he allowed himself to wonder, not just about the world they were trying to save, but about the dream that had kept him going through all the darkness. Could it really come true? He didn't have the answer, but he wouldn't stop believing. And that belief, more than any of his vast psychic abilities, was what made him a true leader,